The wind howled through the narrow streets of the forgotten town of Corwick, a place long abandoned and left to the whispers of history. Few dared to visit this forsaken settlement, and even fewer were aware of the sinister secret it held beneath its crumbling facades. Among the rare visitors was Victor Reeve, a reclusive historian with an obsession for unearthing the darker side of humanity's past. Victor had come to Corwick with one goal: to uncover the mystery of the Bellstone Manuscript. The manuscript was rumored to be a work of forbidden knowledge, a text that had driven many who dared to read it into madness. Its last known location had been in the possession of Corwick's founder, a man named Alistair Graves, who was both revered and feared by the town's earliest inhabitants. With only a lantern to guide him, Victor navigated the twisted alleys, his footsteps echoing off the stone walls. Every shadow seemed to harbor secrets, and every creak of decaying wood felt like a warning. But Victor's resolve was unshakable. His life's work had been dedicated to pursuing knowledge others deemed too dangerous to touch. This, he believed, was his purpose. Finally, he arrived at the Graves estate, an enormous mansion that loomed over the town like a specter. The gates hung ajar, and Victor pushed them open, the iron grinding in protest. The house was silent, its windows dark, but he could feel the weight of history pressing down on him, as if the building itself were alive, watching him. Inside, the mansion was a labyrinth of dark hallways and grand, decaying rooms. Victor's lantern cast an eerie glow, illuminating cobwebs that hung like ghosts and dust that danced in the stale air. He made his way to the library, where he believed the manuscript would be hidden, concealed by Graves himself to protect, or perhaps to curse, those who sought it. He reached a room at the end of the corridor, a place that felt colder, heavier than the rest. The library. Shelves lined the walls, filled with tomes that had not been touched in decades. And there, on a pedestal at the center of the room, lay a small, dusty book bound in leather that seemed to pulse with a life of its own. Victor's hand trembled as he reached for the manuscript. He could feel its pull, an irresistible force drawing him in, whispering promises of knowledge that had been hidden from mankind for centuries. As he touched it, a chill surged through him, and he knew this was no ordinary book. This was a gateway to something far darker, a portal to truths that defied understanding. Victor's fingers brushed over the leather-bound cover, feeling the coldness of it seep into his skin. The manuscript seemed almost to breathe under his touch, as if it were a living entity rather than an artifact. The whispers began to grow, now no longer merely in his mind, but echoing softly in the room around him. The voices were faint, indistinct, yet filled with urgency and warning. Taking a steadying breath, he opened the manuscript, revealing pages filled with symbols and scripts that bore no resemblance to any language he had studied. The ink seemed to shimmer, alive and shifting, making it difficult to focus on any one word. Still, Victor pressed on, his eyes narrowing in concentration, each line unfolding a fragment of forbidden knowledge. He could feel the manuscript weaving its dark tale around him, ensnaring him in its spell. He read of Alistair Graves, the founder of Corwick, and the secret rituals he had performed in these very halls. Graves had been more than just a respected figure. He was a man who had dabbled in the occult, seeking knowledge that lay beyond the boundaries of human comprehension. The manuscript detailed strange rites, ancient ceremonies meant to contact entities from realms beyond. Victor felt a thrill, a chilling excitement, realizing he was delving into secrets that Graves himself had once known. But as he read, the air in the room grew colder. Shadows lengthened, and Victor felt an unnatural presence around him, something that stirred in the very corners of the room, lurking just beyond his sight. His mind whispered to close the book, to abandon this pursuit before it was too late. Yet his hands continued to turn the pages, driven by a hunger he could not contain. Then he found a passage, one that described a ritual to summon the Veilborn, an entity that could grant the seeker visions of the unknown. The description was vague, yet the warnings were clear. The Veilborn did not come without a price. Many who had summoned it had never been the same, lost to madness, or worse. Graves himself had attempted the summoning and had never returned from the room where it had taken place. Victor's heart pounded. He felt both fear and exhilaration at the thought of summoning something that had eluded even Graves. But the manuscript was incomplete. The pages that held the ritual instructions had been torn out. Frustration gnawed at him, until he noticed faint markings on the floor, leading to a concealed doorway at the back of the library. Could it be that Graves had hidden the instructions, knowing they were too dangerous to leave in plain sight? Driven by a mixture of curiosity and dread, Victor moved toward the hidden doorway. He pushed it open, revealing a narrow staircase that descended into darkness. Each step echoed ominously, and with every descent, the air grew colder, thicker, as if he were journeying into another world. At the bottom, he found himself in a chamber with walls lined with strange symbols, and in the center lay a stone altar, dust-covered and ominous. It was here that Graves had performed his ritual. Victor was certain of it. And in a small niche beside the altar, he found the missing pages of the manuscript, waiting for him like a long-forgotten curse. Victor's hand shook as he reached for the torn pages, feeling the weight of countless years pressing upon him. These fragile sheets held the instructions for the ritual Graves had begun but never finished, the summoning of the Veilborn. With a sense of reverence and dread, he spread the pages out on the altar, the faded ink still vibrant with dark purpose. He glanced around the chamber, feeling the presence of shadows gathering, thickening as if in anticipation. The symbols on the walls seemed to pulse, each mark an echo of long-buried secrets. Taking a steadying breath, Victor read through the ritual, his heart pounding faster with every line. The summoning required an offering, something of value, a fragment of one's soul, a piece of oneself that could never be reclaimed. Victor hesitated, a small flicker of self-preservation surfacing amidst his fervor. But he was too far gone to turn back. He had sacrificed too much, risked too much. Whatever it took, he would finish what Graves had started. Lighting the candles arranged around the altar, he whispered the incantations from the manuscript, his voice reverberating in the small chamber, mingling with the eerie silence. As he uttered the final words, the temperature plummeted, and the shadows coalesced into a form, a figure that seemed to exist in the space between light and dark. The Veilborn. Its presence was a distortion, an unnatural blending of reality and nightmare, its outline constantly shifting, its form neither solid nor vapor. It had no face, but Victor could feel its gaze on him, a weight of ancient judgment. "You have called upon me, seeker of knowledge." The Veilborn's voice resonated, an unsettling harmony of whispers and echoes. "What is it you desire?" Victor's voice wavered as he spoke. "I seek understanding. I wish to know the truths hidden from humanity, to see beyond the veil of reality." The Veilborn seemed to regard him, the air thickening with its dark presence. "The knowledge you seek comes at a price. Your mind is but a frail vessel. Not all can bear the weight of what lies beyond. Are you willing to pay with the deepest recesses of your soul?" The question lingered, and for a moment, Victor's resolve faltered. But he steeled himself, driven by the insatiable hunger for discovery that had led him here. "I am willing," he said, his voice trembling. The Veilborn extended a shadowy hand, reaching into Victor's mind. An intense, searing pain erupted within him as memories, fears, and fragments of his own essence were stripped away, drawn into the void that was the Veilborn's form. Victor struggled, the agony consuming him, but he could feel knowledge seeping into him, visions of realms beyond comprehension, truths that defied logic and reason. But as he glimpsed these forbidden secrets, he felt something dark and unyielding take root within him, a madness, an insidious presence that grew stronger with each revelation. He could see Graves' fate, the inevitable descent into insanity that awaited anyone who dared to confront the Veilborn. As the final fragment of knowledge settled into his mind, Victor collapsed, the weight of what he had seen pressing upon him. The Veilborn's voice echoed one last time, a cold warning. "You have gained what you sought, but at a cost beyond measure. Remember, Seeker, some truths are not meant to be known. The Veilborn vanished, leaving Victor alone in the darkness, his mind shattered yet brimming with forbidden knowledge. He staggered to his feet, feeling the remnants of his sanity slipping away, consumed by the revelations he had witnessed. Victor stumbled through the dark chamber, his mind a chaotic storm of images, thoughts, and truths too overwhelming to comprehend. Each step he took felt heavier, his thoughts fraying, barely holding the shape of his own identity. The walls seemed to breathe, shifting and pulsing with an unnatural rhythm, as if they too were alive, watching him, bearing witness to his descent. He made his way back up the narrow staircase, clinging to the remnants of his sanity. The once familiar halls of the mansion now seemed foreign, distorted, as if each room had twisted into a reflection of his own shattered psyche. The flickering light of his lantern cast monstrous shadows that moved with a will of their own, mocking him, reminding him of the cost he had paid. As he crossed the threshold into the library, he caught a glimpse of his reflection in a cracked mirror on the wall. His face was gaunt, hollow, his eyes haunted by the visions that had seared his soul. But beyond his reflection, in the shadows, he saw something else, a specter, a twisted figure cloaked in darkness. The Veilborn. It had not truly left him. Its essence lingered, entwined with his own. In a sudden, horrifying realization, Victor understood that he had not simply acquired knowledge from the Veilborn. He had brought a piece of it back with him, a fragment of its darkness, now woven into the fabric of his being. The forbidden truths he had sought were no longer just knowledge. They were a living, sentient presence within him, a parasite feeding off his own essence. He tried to scream, but no sound escaped his lips. His reflection contorted, mirroring the darkness growing within him, a chilling reminder of his fate. The room spun, the shadows tightening around him, and he fell to his knees, the weight of his own hubris bearing down on him. The house, the town, the very air around him seemed to whisper in unison, mocking his folly, echoing the Veilborn's final warning. Victor staggered out of the mansion, his movements erratic, driven by an impulse he could not control. He knew he could not leave Corwick. The curse of the Veilborn would not let him. The townsfolk would soon speak of a madman haunting the abandoned streets, a figure mumbling forbidden secrets to the wind, forever bound to the shadows of his own making. The Veilborn had claimed him, as it had claimed Graves and countless others before him. Victor had sought knowledge, but he had become a vessel for something far darker, a harbinger of truths that should have remained hidden. As he wandered the lonely streets, his voice a ghostly murmur in the night, he knew he was forever lost. The knowledge he had gained was not a gift. It was a curse, and he was doomed to wander Corwick, haunted by visions only he could see, a prisoner of his own mind, bound eternally to the shadows he had dared to confront.